Now you may be wondering why exactly I'm sitting here holding two bottles of Johnny Walker, a very famous brand in fact, when I'm about to review another whiskey. And the reason for that is the whiskey we are reviewing today, which is called Caol Ila, a 12-year-old single malt Scotch whiskey. Now Johnny Walker is a blended Scotch whiskey. And one of the most distinctive features of this blend, the sort of smokiness, comes from Islay. And it actually comes from this single malt, is part of the Johnny Walker blend. So I'm actually really excited to try what the single malt itself actually tastes like, because it's one of my favourite characters from Johnny Walker. So let's go ahead and pour some into the bottle. Now, I want to swirl this around a bit because it has a very interesting smell to it on the nose. You immediately get this smoky peatness, as you'd expect from Islay. But there's a real sort of fresh note in there as well. It's kind of like... Let me paint you a picture of what this whiskey smells like. So when you smell this whiskey, you immediately get some lovely peaty smoky notes, but it's not an intense smokiness like if you've had a Laphroaig or a Talisker. It's a subtle, lovely sort of peaty note that's delicate in comparison, not harsh and smoky, but it's still there. And that smell is mixed with... It's kind of like if you've ever been camping and you have like those wet mossy logs, like the fresh sort of, after it's just rained and you have like sort of that saturated, damp sort of fresh moss smell mixed with wooden logs, and then you put it on the fire. That's kind of like what this is. It's like a nice sort of fresh, peaty whiskey with... It's really got like this, almost like a fresh green grape note. Citrusy green grape, I would say. It's quite refreshing. I actually might taste the Johnny Walker after this and see if I can pick out the flavour notes that come from the single malt that it's mixed with. So let's go ahead and taste it now. Wow. That is... It's still going. I mean, you saw me swirl that around in my mouth and then I swallowed. And the experience continued. For a 12-year-old whiskey, this is a very refined experience, I would say. The arrival is extremely smooth and very slow. It really takes its time. And on that initial arrival, it's kind of like a delicate citrusy sort of taste. Almost like you don't get that immediate peatiness, but then suddenly you're hit with this like quite impactful, heaty, peaty sort of smokiness to the whiskey. That comes a lot later, especially after I swallowed it. I was like, ooh, now I'm hit with the smokiness of it. And that kind of comes with a hit of ginger and pepper, like a sort of spicy heat that comes with the peatiness that kind of makes that smoky peatiness almost dance across your tongue. I'm going to go back for that actually, because it's really good. I really enjoy that actually. It's not too intense. It's very delicate and smooth. I've not really had a peaty whiskey so smooth, in fact, and it really does have that journey it takes you on. The aftertaste is kind of like a smoky peatiness that's infused with a sweet vanilla sort of taste. And there's almost, as you go on that sort of whiskey journey and you taste it yourself, you'll notice a kind of a citrusy sourness to it. And it's like sweet but sour, kind of like if you have like a ripe fruit and you bite into a plum or something that... Not a plum, I guess a grape actually is a better example that isn't quite ready to eat yet. And you get that sort of bitter sourness, but it's still like sweet at the same time. It's kind of like that. And it's a really pleasant experience. I'm going to rate this whiskey right now. And I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. It's not like, as far as like a peaty whiskey goes, I'd say even if you're not a fan of smoky peaty whiskies, you'd actually still probably like this. It's still very enjoyable in that sense. And I'm really glad I've tried it. I've actually got another tasting glass here. I'm going to put some Johnny Walker. I'm just going to go for the red label, which I've not actually reviewed yet on the channel. But I'm going to put some of this in another tasting glass. I'm just going to see if we can pick up some of the flavour notes. And I mean, for one thing, you can see the colour is that really nice sort of straw yellow, a very genuine whiskey colour on the Caol Ila. And then if you compare it to the Johnny Walker, you see there's, you know, see the Johnny Walker is slightly darker in colour there. Yeah. When you go from one to the other, you have a fresh peatiness in the Caol Ila. And you go back to the Johnny Walker. You can start to pick out those notes individually. I've never been able to do that before, but when you have like a blended whiskey and you know where it's come from, suddenly you can really sort of define those notes, the flavor notes. I'm going to go ahead and taste the Johnny Walker now. Yeah, okay, so the peatiness on the Johnny Walker hits you a lot earlier, and there's a lot more different flavors going on in there. It's a little bit more complex, but in a different way. You still get that peppery heat, but it kind of is a bit more of an explosion of different flavors. And I'm not going to review the red label now, but it's a very different experience. I'm so glad that Caol Ila actually made a single malt from their distillery, because I really enjoy it. In fact, I think I might actually go out and buy a bottle of this the next time I see it, though I don't think I've ever seen it on a store supermarket shelf, so probably have to order it. What's the price point? That's an interesting one. So average cost of Caol Ila is around £40 for the 12-year-old single malt Scotch whiskey, and I'm so glad it's there. Obviously, it is clearly, you know, one of the legs of the Johnny Walker brand, and it's owned by a company that wants to use it for its whiskey blends and keeping the other brands going. But I'm still very grateful that they've actually just released it as a single malt, because that's really cool. And I almost want to go around and taste other whiskies I know it's blended into now, because it's one of the big Scotch whiskey blenders if you want that flavor profile and those characteristics. And it's actually really taught me a lot in that sense about what goes into other blends of Scotch whiskey that I've drunk before. So I actually really like it, and I'm probably going to get a bottle of it at some point. So I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Definitely a 4 out of 5 from me. If you want to see my other reviews, they're linked down below in the description. I recommend you check out my most recent one, actually, of a Irish whiskey that really blew my mind in terms of what Irish whiskey is, because Irish whiskey is kind of defined by just a few individual brands, and this one really breaks the mold. So I recommend checking out that in the playlist below next. Thank you so much for watching this video, though. Drop a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you really enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.